What's up, guys? Welcome to the Put Me In Coach podcast.
Where we go beyond the headlines and deep dive everything NFL.
I'm Ian.
And I'm Andy.
Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you so much. Hey, man, what's going on? How are you?
What's happening?
My guy. We're doing a pretty fun team. I got him right here on my neck with my
I was going to say, what's that?
Yeah.
What's that
my
turtleneck
little 90s
turtleneck
turtleneck. I actually
Yes,
have
sir.
a ton of Vegas Raiders gear just because I really like their stuff. They've always had a lot of cool
Silver and
cool
black,
gear
baby.
and colors over the years, and so. But I pulled this one out because this is one of my favorite little football pieces I have. But
I still want, I don't really wear football jerseys ever anymore, but I do want, like, just for the collection aspect of it, I do want the all-white Charles Woodson 24 jersey from, like, 2002. It's the prettiest jersey, like, ever, in my opinion, and I just feel like I got to go buy one.
Well, you got a wedding coming up, so I'll put that in the old
There you
wedding
go.
gift. Yeah, I'll be one
Right.
for Nicole and one for you. I'll get you that maybe. That's that. 'Cause I'm with you.
What did you
I
get?
co-signed that jersey.
I got a Charles Woodson jersey. It's like
Yeah.
my birthday. It's like actually my wedding. Fully. I'm like ignoring. I'm draping Nikki's face over it. I'm just like, it's a Woodson jersey, Mom. Look.
Never grow up. Actually,
No, never. It's criminal.
Yeah, obviously we're doing the Raiders today. Story time about the Raiders. I actually went to a game, not this past season, but the season before, the 22 season. So it was like December of 22.
Yeah.
Me and my girlfriend went to a game. Yeah.
Infamous blunder happened in that game, did it not?
Yes, I was at the
Yes,
New England
yeah.
Patriots lateral game. That was a lot of fun. My dog ran away from the Airbnb in the middle of that game, and we just told the guy who found him, like, if you just stay at the house and watch him for like an hour, we'll just pay you when we get back. Like, we didn't leave because it was just like it started getting good at the end. Yeah.
Don't ever doubt our love for football. We said
Yeah,
fuck that dog.
yeah, seriously, exactly. My girl was like, "We have to go." I was like, "We're not leaving.
Yeah,
If he's
no,
got
we
him, he's
don't.
got him." Like,
I promise
we're
we
good.
don't.
And then that happened, and I was like, "See, that's why you don't leave in the fourth quarter." And she was like, "That
Yep.
was crazy." You know, I'm like, "Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right." Like,
How
that's
fun.
what's all.
Yeah.
But it's a really. I'm a fan of the Raiders. I'm a fan of this team. It's a football. They're the bad boys of football, right? And we grew up, in Detroit, so it's like that. It's got that bad boy Pistons of football kind of
Pistons
thing
feel
to it.
for sure.
Yeah. And the stadium's amazing. T-Pain did a whole like concert at halftime, which we didn't even know going in. It was just like a really
so
fun
lit.
environment. Yeah, Julian Edelman and Mark Wahlberg were there, and they did like this. They kept panning over to them, and it was a lot of fun. It was just a cool vibe. So,
Yeah.
I'm in on this team, and I'm excited to talk about them. You know what I mean? But before we get into it, let's roll the clip.
Right, I got flame sword.
Last year, Las Vegas Raiders. It was a weird season. They start 3-5. Josh McDaniels is fired. They name Antonio Pierce interim head coach. It was the first year without Derek Carr in a long time. Derek Carr, in my opinion, was really never an elite quarterback, but he was a franchise quarterback for them for a long time. So it was a transition year. Obviously, McDaniels is fired after a 3-5 start. Dave Ziegler, the GM, is also fired. Aidan O'Connell gets a run with the team for a while. And there was definitely a market turnaround, it felt like, within the team, within the locker room, of cohesion, unity, aggression when Pierce took over. So you're coming into this year on kind of a different note than you were last year with McDaniels, who seemed to have lost the locker room before the first year even ended. They hired Tom Telesco from the Chargers to be the GM. Do I love the hire? I don't know if I love it, but I do think Tom did a really good job in LA and San Diego, I guess, with personnel picks. He's made some really good picks. He's gotten a lot of talent on those teams. And then, I think the Antonio Pierce retention, going from interim to the main head coach, I think was kind of them like learning from the Rich Bisaccia thing. Remember when they
Yeah.
fired
Yeah.
Gruden for the emails, and then Rich
Yeah.
Bisaccia took over, and they like made a playoff game, and they were like pretty good, and then
Yeah.
they just didn't keep him, and they hired
Didn't
McDaniels, and
retain
it
him.
was
They
a
brought in
disaster.
McDaniels. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I kind of think that, I'm not saying that AP didn't deserve it. I think he did. I think he absolutely deserved to get this job as a head coach, and we'll
Yeah,
touch
he
on
did.
him as this video goes on. But I do think a lot of it like was the front office being like, "Hey, let's not do Rich Bisaccia again, where we just like hire an outside guy when this team's playing for somebody." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's an interesting season. So that kind of brings us to the team itself. Obviously, we touched on the head coach. Um, this is a roster that I really like. Where are
Yeah.
you on that? Do you feel that?
Yeah. I mean, I won't say I love the roster because I don't love the roster. I think they have great pieces around them.
Definitely.
I think I mean, if you've watched this channel before, there's 4 positions I look for: defensive end, left tackle, quarterback. Really, it's those 3. 4 would just be your weapon, right? Who's your weapon? Whether that be a running back, whether that be a wide receiver, whether that be a safety, whether that be a DB. You know what I mean? But those 3 plus a weapon is really what you want to be a contending team. And they damn sure have their defensive end. And they have their weapon. It's the other 2 things that they don't have, in my opinion, that will hold this team back this year, in my opinion.
Yeah. No, I think that's a fair assessment. I guess we'll, starting with the quarterback because it's the most obvious.
Yeah.
And not only with every team, it's the most obvious. We usually do start with quarterbacks when we do these, just kind of by accident,
Yeah.
low key. But it's quarterback is quarterback. I mean, it is what it is. You either got one or you
It's the most
don't.
important position. Yeah, it's the most
Yeah.
important position.
And when there's an old saying in football that if you've got 2 quarterbacks, you've got no quarterback. And this
Period.
team, to me, is an example of that. Now, before Raiders fans get mad, I just want to say I think both of these guys are actually good quarterbacks. It just feels to me like they are both the epitome of bridge to very high-end backup quarterbacks fighting for
Yeah.
a starting job on a
Yep.
very good offensive roster. I'll start with Gardner Minshew, and I'll give you my thoughts on why I think he should be the starter, and I'll pass it back to you, and you can maybe touch on Aidan. But all the reports coming out now are that the team's kind of leading towards Aidan, and he did play well last season when he got the opportunity. After Jimmy Garoppolo was rightfully benched, but Gardner Minshew made a Pro Bowl last season with the Indianapolis Colts. Gardner Minshew is a career 500 starter which is including a season in Jacksonville where they were tanking intentionally, and they actually benched him because they were winning too many games with him, and they just wanted to tank for Trevor. And it was like, if you're in there, we have a chance. So like you're on the bench. So his record is actually probably a little bit better than 500 if you really look at everything honestly. He's a good quarterback. He came in last year after the Anthony Richardson injury and played point guard beautifully. That's kind of what he does. He is sort of the Steve Nash type of quarterback. He doesn't have great size. He doesn't have great athleticism. He does not have great arm strength. But what he does do is he seemingly inspires teams a little bit to play around him. He's a guy's guy. He's got that Baker Mayfield kind of chippiness, where people are like, oh, this is our guy, kind of a linebacker's personality in a quarterback's body. And I think that with these weapons, with these offensive pieces, and respectfully with an offensive coordinator whom I do not trust whatsoever, I think you're better off going with a guy who has the experience, a guy who's proven. Last season this Colts team was one game away against the Texans in Week 18 from making the playoffs. Um, I think when I look at these two guys, they're very similar. They do a lot of the same stuff. They have a lot of the same limitations, but what I like about Minshew is that once everything breaks down and when the plays aren't working and when things aren't open, and with Luke Getsy, I think there are going to be some learning curves because I don't know that this roster is set up exactly for what Luke Getsy does. Um, I think Gardner Minshew, with a broken script and with a broken play, can just run around back there and make some wild throws and make some ad lib plays and keep this team in games in a way that I'm not so sure Aidan O'Connell can. So if it ends up being Aidan, I trust the coaching staff looked at it. But for my money, I just feel like Gardner Minshew gives this team the best chance to win next season. And I think they actually do have a chance to win because this team does have some talent, and I do like their head coach. So that's kind of my take on Gardner Minshew. I think he's a good quarterback, but you don't really have a guy, Neither of these guys are stars.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think when it comes to Aidan O'Connell and Gardner Minshew, it's like we just touched on, right? Remind me of the coach's name who they fired and brought in Rich. What was it?
Oh, Rich Bisaccia.
Pisaccia, right?
The interim after Gruden.
I feel like it's a kind of a similar situation, which is like he was the interim after Jimmy G, and he goes on to finish the year 5-4, has a couple of really special moments, particularly the game against the Los Angeles Chargers, a division rival at that, throws for like 4 touchdowns, just absolutely throttles them in that game. It's moments like that that get a team behind you and get a coach behind you. When Antonio Pierce took over, the story goes is Aidan O'Connell woke up in the middle of the night and his wife was like awake, and he's like, "Why are you awake?" And she's like, "Has anybody called you yet?" And he's like, "No, it's 4 a.m. Like, what are you talking about?" And she's like, "Josh and what was Ziegler's name? What was Ziegler's first name?"
Oh, Dave.
Dave, yeah. Josh and Dave got fired is what she, hit him with. And he's like, "Oh my God." So he said he laid in bed for another 3 hours and just didn't know what was going to happen because it was very clearly time for Jimmy G to go, right? Detroit throttled them I think it was week 6 or 7. Josh McDaniels was fired that night. Ziegler was fired that night. And I think as the backup, he felt like, hey, it's my time to shine right now. I think I might get the call. So the next morning, forgive me because I don't remember who Antonio Pierce's interim offensive coordinator was, but he had called Aidan O'Connell. He had told Aidan O'Connell that morning when he got to the facilities, "Hey, I'm OC now, and you're going to be the guy." So Aidan O'Connell, he finishes the year 5-4 as a starter. He, like I said, has a great game against the Chargers, throws for 4 touchdowns. He won his first 2 games, which were against the Giants and the Jets. I know those aren't like the most impressive teams, but when you're coming off of a bunch of losses and your coach getting fired and everything, like those wins matter so much. There's video of infamous video of Maxx Crosby smoking the cigar in the locker room afterwards. You could just tell the vibe had changed around there. It was really, really tight and tense with Josh McDaniels, and it was really, really loose when Antonio Pierce and Aidan O'Connell took over. And you go in there, you win 2 games. They go on a bit of a losing streak. They lose to Miami, Kansas City, and Minnesota. But then they throttle again. 63-21, throttle the Chargers. They go out and they beat the Chiefs in a 20-14 game, and they lose to the Colts in a really tight one to end the season, and then to end the away season, and then they come home for their last game against Denver and they win pretty soundly. Aidan O'Connell ends the season with 2,200 yards, 12 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, 62% completion rating and 83.9 passer rating. Gardner Minshew also finished the year with a 62.2 completion percentage, a QBR of also 84, threw for 15 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, and he had, about 1,000 more yards than he did, 3,300 yards, but he also played, I think, maybe 6 or 7 more games than Aidan ended up playing. Maybe it was less, but still, those games matter. Again, I think it's the battle of mid. Truthfully, I think both of these guys are pretty mid, and none of them. I do agree. Gardner probably should be the starting quarterback, but I think when you look at those raw numbers, then you add the factor of Aidan was the quarterback who led them out of the Josh McDaniel era and led them kind of into this new era, and they finished the year on a not on a high mark, but not on a low one either. They were very
Oh,
like middle of the road. Obviously, I mean they picked I think what 13th or something is where they got Brock Bowers. So
mm.
definitely not a top 10 bad team, but right on that precipice. And I think moving forward there's hope that he can continue to develop and show these skills that he was showing in some of these games.
I think it's an interesting place to be. I definitely think from a talent, from a mobility, arm strength, frankly, eye test, athletic, kind of every metric we use to grade quarterback talent, I think that you have a bottom 10 situation at quarterback right now. But segueing into some of these pieces on offense, and I'm going to gloss over the O line a little bit. I'll keep it short. I'll let you kind of touch on Jackson Powers Johnson and some of these draft picks later. But you have a really good center, and you have a franchise left tackle who's not a first team All Pro. He's not one of those like top left tackles, but he's very good. You lost your right tackle and your right guard, whoever was the starters last season. I think it'll be a good unit. I don't know that it's going to be great, but I think it'll be okay. The running back situation is Zamir White and a couple of guys in Amir Abdullah and Alexander Madison who I don't care about. Zamir, I think, will be pretty good. He showed a lot of efficiency. He was actually more efficient and more effective than Josh Jacobs was last season with the same team. So I think he's actually okay, but I think the stars of the show here are the pass catchers. And, our boy Tay Adams, Mr. Taco Bell, he he co-signed Aidan this offseason. So I think that matters too, right? And you touched on that. I think that stuff matters. So either
Yep,
way,
Maxx co-signed him too. So
yeah,
it's,
and but he's still got to get it done. And I think both of these quarterbacks can facilitate the ball to these playmakers. I just think Minshew can do it a little bit better. But that doesn't really matter because the good news is these guys both have some really good guys to throw to. Starting with the star who did regress a little bit last year, partly I think because of age and partly I think because of situation. I don't think Tay Adams is a top 5 guy anymore. I just think he's at that point, but I do think that he is still a very, very, very legitimate number 1 wide receiver. And the fact that he regressed last year kind of doesn't matter to me that much because of what's around him. This is not going to have to be a Tay Adams carry job in this receiving group. Opposite of Tay Adams, you've got Jacoby Myers, who who does a little bit better inside the slot, but can play outside and proved it last year. I think for what it's worth, Jacoby Myers is one of the most underrated wide receivers in football right now. Very good too. Very good too.
He's good for 800 yards and 6 to 8 touchdowns every year.
He's a good player, bro. And the thing is, the way that he plays is very much ironically like New England Patriots style wide receiver. Like he's a very good route runner. He's going to get most of his damage in underneath stuff, great slants, great like kind of quick outs, like just very much like pick up a third down. His hands are excellent. I really like him as a 2. A guy that nobody's talking about to me is Trey Tucker. He is, reminds me a lot of like Marvin Mims that we discussed with the Denver Broncos. I'm sure Raiders fans will hate me comparing him to a Bronco, but like he just, I mean it in actually a good way. Like he is going to be very much their downfield threat. And it's part of my beef with these 2 quarterbacks is they're not like great downfield throwers. They're kind of, more like pick you apart guys. But he is going to offer like a home run kind of speed. He's got that sort of like undersized, big play thing, but he showed some massive flashes last year. And so I expect him to take a step forward. And I would say probably my favorite part of this whole unit is the tight end tandem. unfortunately, Rob Gronkowski and Aaron Hernandez were like so cold that like they set this bar so high of like the two tight end thing. Um, but this is like, to me, this has the potential to be right up there with like those two. It won't be because Gronk's the best tight end ever. And Aaron Hernandez was a dog despite everything that you guys know about, that we all know about him. I mean, he was a really good football player. But the way that these two line up and play is actually could be potentially very similar. A lot of people had an issue with the Brock Bowers pick, and I'll let you touch on him a little bit more. But um, Brock Bowers will be very much a tight end, slot receiver, pass catching hybrid type of player. And he was arguably the best football player in this draft. I'm very high on Brock Bowers. But a lot of people felt like Michael Mayer was like going to get this sort of short end of the stick, right? It was like, well, why would they draft it? They just drafted Michael Mayer high last year. Michael Mayer is a better blocker than Brock Bowers. He's a lot larger. He's a big, 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 strong, physical, big hands, big target tight end who will play a traditional, what's it called, kind of Y tight end role for them. He's going to line up in the 3-point stance. He's going to chip. He's going to run routes. He's going to block. He's going to do all of those things. And he's a good pass catcher. He's just not the receiver that Bowers is. So they're going to be able to line these guys up differently. They're playing two very different roles. I want people to understand that just because they're both tight ends, it's not going to be a starter backup tight end thing. It's a two tight end thing, and one is Kincaid and one is Knox, but they're both better than those guys. Does that make sense? It's that type of thing. So I just feel like whatever quarterback gets in there is going to really have a good time. Like there's just some real good playmakers on this team, man. I'm really excited to see like what this offense can do if the quarterbacks can, one of these guys can hit, because they got some weapons on this team. So yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Did you want to touch on some of these draft picks that they took last year before we start talking about defense? Because I know you kind of like their
Yeah, I mean,
draft.
you touched on both of them. I don't want to get too deep into the draft, but I do think that you took. I mean, it's like you said, the quarterbacks who we have at play here are not downfield guys. They're not guys who are going to go and air it out completely. Gardner Minshew a little bit more than Aidan O'Connell, but either way, both of them are much more like middle of the field type guys. And like you said, think Sam Laporta last year for Detroit and turn it up 2 notches, and that's what you should expect out of Brock Bowers this year. He's probably the best tight end prospect ever. The fact that he dropped to 13 was kind of insane to me. You know, Sean McVay wanted him. What I can't remember if it was 13 or 14 where he was drafted, but somewhere in that range. The
13, I think.
The other guy I want to talk. Yeah, that's what I thought, but I don't know. Who cares? The other guy I want to talk about is Jackson Powers Johnson. I think he's going to be the steal of the draft. I deeply wanted him for my Detroit Lions, just because I know how important our offensive line is, and you know our center Frank Ragnow has been dealing with this foot injury for like 3 years, and it's gonna force him into retirement way earlier than he should. And Jackson Powers Johnson is going to be a staple center / guard for you guys for the next 10 years. And he's going to be all pro, and he's going to be he could be the next Jason Kelsey, and I wouldn't be surprised. He's all dog. He'll probably play guard this year. But pairing him next to Colton Miller, you have no worries. If he ends up on the left side, I mean, Aidan O'Connell, Gardner Minshew, me or Ian, you're going to have 5 seconds to throw that ball because nobody's getting on that left side. That's just reality. And that's really all I had on it. I think those are 2 A+ draft picks. I think you got 2 first-round talents. I think you got the best tight end in the draft, and in my opinion, I think you got the best lineman in the draft. And that just is what it is.
Yeah. No, it's very well said. And before we pivot to the defense, I do just real quick. One thing I am worried about offensively, and it's really just one thing, because I think the O-line is decent. I think Zamir White is actually kind of a sleeper in the making here at running back.
I do have him as a breakout candidate. I do have him as a breakout candidate this year.
No, I got you. I'm with you. So it's not the personnel, but besides kind of the quarterback questions, I don't like the Luke Getsy hire, and it's something that I do think is going to potentially hold this offense back.
It's a
So it's
bad hire,
something to
dude.
keep an eye on. And I'm not going to go too deep into it. I
Yeah.
don't want to let my Bears bias like take over and run the place again. But that
Mhm.
is not what it really is. I actually just don't think that Luke Getsy is the kind of OC that you want to pair with a defensive CEO head coach. I think you need a young, innovative, creative offensive coordinator, and you don't have that. And I think it is going to handicap this offense just a touch next season. So
Totally
something I'm
agree.
worried about a little bit, something to keep an eye on. This defense, interestingly enough, a lot of people don't know this, but it is true. After Josh McDaniels was fired last year, and our boy AP took over, which you describe him as the Black Dan Campbell, which I think is
The
absolutely
Black Dan
hilarious.
Campbell. That's exactly
Yeah,
who he is.
yeah, yeah,
That's who he is, dude. He's a culture guy.
yeah,
He's
yeah,
a he's a
yeah.
he's a true alpha culture guy. Is he the best X's and O's guy? I don't think so. But he's a guy who is a leader of men, who is a locker room legend, if you will.
Yes, and
I love Antonio Pierce. I mean, he was when they and I'll get into this in a second because I have a whole thing on Maxx Crosby. But when the best player on your team is coming to the owner and saying hire him or trade me, it's you got to hire him, right? It's like let's not do this thing again. This is the guy. This is the guy that we need to have as the leader of our locker room, and I think you're going to see a similar arc with the Raiders as you did with Dan Campbell, kind of getting better every year, and Antonio Pierce figuring it out every year.
Well, I completely agree with you, and the reason the Maxx Crosby going to bat for him very seemingly wasn't just because this team liked the guy. A lot of people don't know this, and I didn't know this until I started doing kind of my due diligence and research on this defensive unit for this video. This was top 3 defense last year after AP
It got
took
a lot
over. You know
better.
that?
It got
Top
a
3.
lot better. Yeah, it
Top
got a lot
3.
better.
They were
Yeah.
anywhere from 1 to 3,
Yeah.
depending on what metric system you use for the remainder of the 2023 season from when AP took over, which is crazy given some of the defenses in the NFL right now. He got them boys playing. So the interesting thing about him is, and it's part of why I hate to pour cold water on it. I hate the Getsy hire because I think you have your guy. I think you have your head coach. I really think you got it. I think that you need your quarterback and your OC to finish this thing out. But defensively, I have no worries on this team. And it's exciting because like that's what the Raiders are all about, man. It's rough and tumble, and this is a team full of like real gritty ballers, right? Like it just is. It's just punch you in the mouth kind of defense. I wanted to start with the obvious because this defense does have a superstar, and we love talking about superstars. Again, this is not an analytics channel. This is a baller channel, right? We like players, baby.
We
Yeah.
like hoopers.
I
We
don't
like
want my
hoopers.
I don't want my chips
You
plain,
out
by
there?
the way. I want
No,
my
I
chips
don't.
with
I
the
don't.
dip.
I want my chips with the dip. That's all I know. I don't want my chips plain. I want my chips with the dip. So bring them dips.
So
Salt
bring them
and vinegar,
dips.
baby. Give straight up. I need a little seasoning. I need a little sauce.
Yeah,
And if you talk about if you talk about a player with a little bit of seasoning and a little bit of sauce, there's one that comes to mind, and that's Mr. Maxx Crosby, baby. He
friend of the show.
is effing him, bro. When I was doing my research on this, I got so deeply enamored with Maxx because I didn't know the full story, and I'm sure a lot of Raider fans will know the full story. So this might be redundant to you guys, but if there's fans out there watching this and have gotten this far and you're not a Raider fan, you're just kind of a casual fan of the NFL, buckle in because this is an unbelievable story. Maxx Crosby, who I called it Maxx Crosby, the art of self-reflection, because I think it's really important that us as people, we all have flaws. And it is on us to either play into our flaws or address our flaws. And not everybody, I think everybody can think of somebody in their life right now who plays into their flaws and doesn't want to change and doesn't want to just keeps doing toxic things over and over and over again. And Maxx Crosby is kind of like the best story of somebody who addressed his issues and took care of him. And I'll get into all that in a second. So if you watch the show before, you know that I live in Michigan and Ian, grew up here in Michigan, and that's how we became friends and yada, yada, yada. We grew up in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Right next to Ann Arbor, Michigan is Ypsilanti, Michigan, which is ironically both a place where both him and I lived for many, many years growing up. And then together as adults, we lived there. And in Ypsilanti, Michigan is a school, Eastern Michigan University, and that's where Maxx Crosby went to college. It's a Maxx school. It's not a football powerhouse by any means. Usually, I mean, they have a really cool stadium that is now labeled Maxx Crosby Field.
And by the way, quick, that stadium is right next door to the hospital I was born in, so it hits close.
Fully.
Yeah,
fully.
Yeah.
And Reinierson, baby. And it's always empty. Nobody ever goes. They were the worst team forever. They were hanging their hat on Charlie Batch for the longest time. And if you're a Lions fan in the early 2000s, you know that name. If you're a Steelers fan in the early 2000s, you know that name. But outside of those two things, you probably don't know that name. So Maxx Crosby, he was born in Michigan. He moves to Texas as like an adolescent. He grows up in Texas. He gets one singular offer to play college ball, and it's from Eastern Michigan University, which is like kind of a full circle, right? He was born about an hour outside of Ypsilanti. So he comes back to Michigan. He comes back to Michigan. He goes to EMU. He goes all MAC in 2017 and 2018. So he's just a freak of nature. And quick sidebar, the company that I work for, we hire a lot of we used to hire a lot of Eastern Michigan athletes. And the year in 17 and 18, we had a player who was on that defensive line, and he back then would tell us, oh no, there's this white boy on this team that is unbelievable. And, we didn't care about Eastern Michigan football to any degree. So we would all just be like, oh, that's pretty cool. He must be good.
A missed opportunity.
Such a missed opportunity, because he is now, a top 5 defensive player in the NFL.
He's 2 for me at end.
Yeah, he's 2 for me as well. He is 2 for me as well, ironically. Right behind Myles Garrett. So he starts. So Maxx himself has said over the years, he started using alcohol as a way to kind of combat social anxiety, and he really, really liked it, right? As most people do. During one of those seasons, that I believe it was the 2017 off season, he really got super buck wild with it. He started drinking every day. He was doing the drugs. He was doing coke. He was smoking a lot of weed. He was just spiraling. And his coach came to him and said, "Hey, here's the deal." I'm sorry. He got a DUI. That was kind of the thing that sparked this whole story I'm going to tell. He got a DUI, and his coach came to him and after the DUI and said, "Hey, here's the deal. If I found out that you're drinking, you're suspended. Point blank period. I don't care. I know you're over 21. I do not care. You're suspended." So he completely, people in the program know the term white knuckling it, which is, you're not really getting the emotional help you're getting. You're just kind of thugging it out, if you will. So he was so adamant about going to the NFL. He knew that, hey, this is my chance to go and live my dream and change my life forever. So he completely white knuckled it. The whole football season, he's completely sober. Doesn't have a slip up, anything. Goes all MAC again, and then gets he going into the process of the draft, he is expected to be somewhere in that top 100. He didn't know really where. He didn't really think he was going to be a first round pick, but he thought maybe second round, maybe it was going to be third round. He ends up going in the very beginning of the 4th round. I think he was pick 106. And he was saying that, in these interviews that I'm watching with him, he's saying that the anxiety on going through the 3rd round and not being, a top 100 pick was really, it really hurt him, because he was like, dude, I know what I am. I know how good I am. I know how good I can be. So he ends up getting the call from the Raiders. Obviously, he goes in and makes an immediate impact. He got 6 tackles in this first game ever against the Denver Broncos. Week 11 that year, he records 4 sacks, 4 against the then Bengals quarterback Ryan Finley. He comes in second in Defensive Rookie of the Year voting to Nick Bosa, an understandable loss. Goes into his 2020 offseason after his rookie year. He's now, he's now got $1 million to his name. He has no school supervision. He is bored because it's the off season, and he goes on a 3-month bender where he is just partying, doing drugs, doing, tons of alcohol, tons of cocaine, tons of weed, tons of pills, everything under the sun. He's in Vegas. He's partying. His now wife, who was his girlfriend at the time, leaves him completely. He's just like, I can't do this with you anymore. He wakes up one morning and says, you know what? I'm so dehydrated that I think I'm going to die. And he called his coach and he called his ex, his now wife, and says, hey, I need to go to rehab. I have a problem. I need to go to rehab. So they get him in rehab. He goes and does his 90 days. He gets out and he gets with all the trainers on the team. And he goes, I want to be the best player in the NFL. I don't want to be mediocre. I don't want to be, run of the mill. I want to be the best player in the NFL. Right. 2021, to the season following that, he gets his first Pro Bowl. He is second team All Pro. 2022, the season after that, he March 11th, 2024. March 11th, 2022. 2 years to the exact day of him going to rehab, he signs a 4-year, $95 million extension with the Raiders, solidifying himself as one of the best, the highest paid ends in the league. He follows that up by getting 79 tackles, 49 solo tackles, 30 assisted tackles, and 12.5 sacks. And then last year has 90 tackles, 55 solo tackles, 35 assisted tackles, and 14.5 sacks. And he's second team All Pro last year. I mean, it's unbelievable. This kid woke up one morning so dehydrated from the drugs and alcohol in his system and says, F this, I am a dog and I want to be the best player in the NFL, and has just followed it up by 3 years of being pretty much just that. And I guess to end this all and stamp my flag on my end of things, 2024 is the year he does it. 2024, he's going to win Defensive Player of the Year. He's going to record, 14 sacks, 15 sacks. I mean, look at the trajectory. He goes from 79 to 90. He goes from 49 solo to 55. He goes from 30 to 35. He goes from 12 to 14. So let's just up those numbers, right? 100 tackles, 65 solo tackles, 45 assisted tackles. Let's go 19 sacks next year. I don't think that's crazy. And he's going to be first team All Pro. He's going to take that crown from Myles Garrett next year. And next year is going to be the year that Maxx Crosby plants the flag and makes himself the best ed in the entire NFL. That's how I feel about it.
That is so eloquently laid out by you, honestly. And incredibly inspiring. Maxx is kind of the ultimate friend of the show, being from Ypsilanti, or playing college ball in Ypsilanti, being from Michigan.
100%.
And, for me, I don't, neither of us really touch on our personal lives too much on this, but, I come from a family where there's a lot of addiction problems. And being able to see somebody, with every recovering addict, you have to find your why. And it has to be your why, not somebody else's why, not your kids, not your spouse, your why. And to see somebody come so close to throwing it all away because of their addictions, find their why and never take their foot off the gas ever since. And I really hope that he can stay sober for the rest of his career and the rest of his life, honestly, beyond his career.
Sober. He's been sober 3 years. He just had a little baby. Him and the girl his girl. I didn't get too much into it, but his girl was a soccer player for EMU, and she actually stuck around and held him down completely when he was going through all this stuff, and was trying to tell his family and friends like, hey, he's got a huge problem, and a lot of people ignored her and just were like, yeah, he'll be fine, and completely stuck it out with him, and now is his wife, and he signed a $100 million deal, and it all worked out for him in the end. But yeah, dude, he's one of the coolest players in the NFL, in my opinion. I think it takes such a respectable man to look yourself in the mirror and say, I have this problem and I need to address it, and I need to change, not only for myself and just my basic health, but my future, my lady's future, my future kids. And I know I'm really like that at this game of football, and I want people to recognize that. And yeah, if you want to come to the Lions, hey, listen,
Door's always open, big guy.
You know what I mean? Come on back home again. Why don't you come on back home?
Yeah, I mean, it's well said. I mean, and Darren Waller in previous years has touched on his addiction and kind of what that's like. People like that, with that kind of power and personality and talent and shine on them, can always find enablers. So to rise above that and do what he's done, despite the addiction, it's just, I don't know. I'm just beyond impressed. I will try to and fail miserably at following up that an immensely beautiful segment by you by just touching on a couple of other guys on this defensive line.
Listen, will you turn your mic down? Will you turn your mic down just a hair? I'm getting that thingy again. Perfect.
Yeah, is that good?
Yeah, I don't hear it anymore. Yep, perfect.
Yeah.
But yeah, go ahead.
No, I will do my absolute best. Obviously, fail miserably at attempting to follow up that amazing segment with just a little more information on some of these guys on the D line, because Maxx Crosby is, in my opinion, we just touched on it, top 2 in the NFL at edge.
Yeah, 100%.
But this defensive line with him he's not alone on this line, and PFF just put out a list of top rankings of the defensive lines in the NFL, and they had the Raiders at 9. And Raiders fans, if you're still watching the comments, let me know what you think. I felt like this was kind of
that's disrespectful.
This was kind of a disrespect, man. To me, top 3, top 4 group in the NFL right now, and especially with this coach. Like I said, after the coaching change last season, this was a top 2 defense in the NFL statistically. They got better. I mean, a player that I love, bringing in Christian Wilkins from Miami to play that middle position. I think he's one of the top 5 defensive tackles in football, arguably. So that alone is a huge change. His ability to stop the run and still actually pressure the quarterback consistently is pretty impressive. He's a giant man who also has good foot speed. It's deadly. He's lethal. Malcolm Kuntz is a guy last year who showed a lot of promise when AP took over. And the big running theme I noticed with this D-line when I was studying tape and film from this past season with these guys, all these players got better when AP took over. It was like magic. And I don't know how it happened. I don't know how he did it, but all these guys got better. And Malcolm Kuntz is a prime example of that on the edge. He had 8 sacks last season, which is good. 8 sacks.
Yeah, that's nothing to
But you know
scoff
what's
at.
crazy about those 8 sacks?
All came after AP took over?
Yes.
Yeah,
every single
I
one.
believe it.
He had 0 sacks and then 8.
Yeah.
So he's been unlocked. And then obviously Matthew Butler is a really good player. He's older. He's 30. He also stepped it up last year. And paired with Wilkins, I think that's going to be a really good interior defensive line. You're not going to be able to run on these boys. That's flat out. So this whole thing that Los Angeles is doing with Jim and Greg, it's cute. I get it, but good luck. When you play these guys, you're not running the ball, period. And they can also rush the passer. Those 2 guys I just touched on are very good. Obviously, we all know what Maxx Crosby is now, but these guys picked an edge rusher at 7th overall last year named Tyree Wilson, who came into last season with a foot injury. He missed the entire offseason, his entire rookie offseason with this team because of foot surgery. He wasn't playing very well to start the season when he got healthy. But the more I watched his tape, the more I watched like what he does. I don't think he was healthy until he was healthy. Does that make sense? Like he was on the field still struggling with that foot, I believe, for a big first part of that year. And I think they rushed him back a little too fast to justify the draft pick, if that makes any sense. You know what I mean? It was kind of like, hey, buddy, like we took you 7th overall and we're struggling. Like we need you to play. And he was like, I'm not fully healthy. And they were like, we don't care. You know what I'm saying? You know how that kind of happens with football. And these guys always want to be out there, right? But you could see that once he got healthy, he was getting out of his breaks really fast. He was showing the signs of explosion. And he is 6'7", 275 pounds. And once he started pressuring the quarterback, it was a different ball game. And even before he started pressuring the quarterback, a lot of these coaches were talking about this dude plays the run like beautifully. Like he is our best run support defender on this defense right now. So if he can develop, he's raw. If he can develop his pass rush game, kind of like with Will Anderson I talked about, he doesn't have that layup package yet. If he can develop that, this defense this line could potentially be a top 3, top 2. Like I don't know if I'd go best in the league, but they could be. I mean, they really could be. So this is an A+ unit. I'm really excited to see what Maxx Crosby does, what this D-line does. And for those of you wondering, I am skipping over the DBs a little bit. I'm sorry to do it. The reality is they have 2 new corners starting this year. I have to see what this unit is before I feel comfortable getting on camera and telling you guys what I think about them. It's too unknown. But I'm not sure it has to be elite because this defensive line is top 3. So it's going to be a lot of fun, man. And I'm really, really excited to watch these boys play. And it's a gritty group of badass dudes. It's old school football. I think I told you this real quick though. It reminds me of like the early 2000s Tampa Bay Buck teams with John Gruden as coach. You know what I mean? Like they got that thing with like Warren Sapp. It's just got that vibe. And then of course like a mid Brad Johnson quarterback, right? You're like, this team's nice. And it's like, who's their QB? It's like Brad Johnson. The difference is in 2024, I don't know with the OC and with the quarterbacks you have that it's enough, but it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm not betting against them. That's for sure.
Nope. Me neither. How many wins do you think they're going to get?
Last year they went 8-9. I'm flipping it. I'm going 9-8. I think they're going to finish second again. I think they are the second best team in this division, not LA, not Denver. I think I need to, like I just mentioned, I think I need to know who your franchise quarterback is. And I need to see the offensive coordinator do something different than what he's done for his career for me to start looking at this team as a contender. But I think you have the right CEO head coach. I think you have a ton of playmakers on offense that I love. And I think you have one of the best units on defense in the entire NFL right now. So it's a good football team, man. I just don't know if it's elite yet.
No, I feel you, dude. It's a shame. I wish it's like this team it has everything but the quarterback, in my opinion. Like I said, you can go iffy on a couple of those things. Do they have an elite running back? Do they have an elite, blase split, secondary, whatever? But I do wish that there was just like a free agent quarterback out there who, really thrived in the short game, who could get the ball out really fast, who loved 2 tight end sets, and could utilize somebody like Devontae Adams, and would preferably have like some sort of relationship with Antonio Pierce, and could really come implement his own system in there, and was 45 and sitting at home and has
went
7
to
Super Bowls.
friend of the show.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah, that guy
it just seems like
got roasted on Comedy Central on Netflix.
It just seems like this team was built for Tom Brady to come in for a year.
Make the call.
And it's just kind of like a wet dream for me now at this point. It's like I just want to see it. I don't know. You want to be part owner? Come pull the Michael Jordan. Come play for me.
Yeah, do the residency thing. Go watch Usher. Go watch Adele. All the guys who were just a few years ago who no longer are,
Yeah.
they're in Vegas.
Yeah.
Come on down, baby. We got your number on. We
100%.
got your number, man. Let's do it. You
Oh,
know, I
man.
don't know. I'm with you, man. I mean, we did a video at the beginning of
One more year.
our channel. You know,
Just do it again.
I would love nothing more than to see this. I think it'd be a lot of fun.
It'd be
And
the-
I
it'd
actually
be the
think
fun-
with
it'd be the
Brady,
most
they
fun
could
thing
they
ever.
could potentially win a ring, bro. Straight up. I think this team's good
100%.
enough. And they got that
100%.
Tampa thing that he had with that, like, remember the JPP, like that D line they had? It was nasty. They gave
Yeah.
Patrick Mahomes fits in that
Yeah.
Super Bowl.
Yep.
It's
sure
got all
did.
the makings of a Brady. It's got the pass
does.
rush. It's got the
Yep.
it's
Yep.
got that Tom Brady thing going on,
It
man.
does, yeah. Colton
boy, with
Miller,
that-
Jackson
with
Powers
that-
Johnson. Yeah.
With that silver and black number 12 Brady jersey sell like a
Zamir-
mofo, man.
Zamir
Boy would
White
just
isn't
fly off the shelves.
Zamir White isn't just every running back that the Patriots had during his entire tenure
Yeah.
there.
And he's got
You
a
know
lot
what
of
I mean?
Leonard Fournette to his game too. He can very
I
much
know.
be that
Yeah.
3-down kind of power speed guy.
100%.
Oh, that's
100%.
amazing, man. That's fun. Yeah,
That's how I feel. But no, I'm with you. I mean, in the reality of things, I think Aidan O'Connell's probably your guy, and I think you go 9-8 and you come second in the division. I think Denver sucks, and I do think the Chargers are going to be kind of what they were this year. I think they lack in too many areas to be
roster's not
that
there yet.
good. No, it's not. It's not. They have the really good quarterback, and that's kind of it. They have a really good tackle combo too, but they
maybe.
outside of that, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this
no, that's
roster
real. I
can't.
guess I
The,
don't know
the
what
Chargers
their wallet is.
rosters can't hold a candle to this team. So I
totally agree.
I'm gonna go 9-8. I think they just missed the playoffs, unfortunately, but
Yep,
it could be
same.
a sneaker. Maybe they get in and make a wild card. That'd be a lot of fun. I'm certainly rooting
would
for
be.
it. As you can see, I am a supporter of the Raiders. But
Sure, same.
but yeah,
Any
man,
team
let's
with
get
Maxx
these
Crosby
guys-
is a team I support.
Love Max.
Period.
Let's get these guys out of here. Guys, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe if you're still here. Let us know what you think, man. Vegas, I mean, Raider Nation, if there's any fan base we want to hear from, it's y'all, straight up. Most interesting
straight
fan
up.
base on earth,
Yeah,
low-key.
facts.
Yeah,
We
so
are-
let's
we,
get after
we
it,
come
man.
in we come in peace. We come in
Yeah.
peace.
Just get murdered for saying Gardner
Right.
Minshew's not that good. All right, man. Thank you. We'll see you guys later.
Yep. Peace.
Bye.